Hey guys, Mark Allen, BHSpringSolutions LLC, BHSpringSolutions.com, and this is the continuation of High Power University from BH Spring Solutions. And we have been working our way through the history section of the evolution of the Browning High Power Design, or the FN High Power Design as you might prefer. And we have been using as a basis for this history the Wikipedia article that currently exists here in April 2020 for the Browning High Power. And what we've been doing is we've been just affirming that most of this information is in fact, true. But we've been filling in the gaps and connecting the dots on some things that kind of are not particularly apparent. Where we had gotten to in the last session is we had started getting into the what the Wikipedia article calls the HPSFS, and I want to we're going to continue on this theme of the SFS system for the high power, because this, we believe, is just one example of many examples of design work that was going on in Belgium and at the FN Urstal facility around this time, and I'm talking about in the 1970s, particularly in the 1980s. And there was a designer there by the name of Leon Hubert. And Leon was the lead designer engineer involving modifications for the high power pistol design. I want to backtrack with you a little bit, conceptualize the high power pistol here just for a moment. The high power pistol may have been the world's first really influential handgun that was not designed as a whole handgun by one designer. It may have actually been the design that started the thinking of modifying existing designs or evolving existing designs. The whole concept of firearms modifications was somewhat born with the high power pistol, because it was rather a piecemeal kind of assemblage of John Browning's work, and John Browning was working around patents that he had sold that involved the 1911 pistol. So he had to do workarounds, his own patents that he had sold to the U.S. government that he couldn't, infringe on his own designs that he had already sold and gotten money for. So it's a lot of interesting dynamics going on surrounding the design of the high power pistol. And John Browning passed before it was finished, so parts like the trigger subassembly, this is really a dia done save. This is his baby. He did this. John Browning did not do that part of the high power pistol. Same way with the fire control group. We never saw John Browning use a sear hammer tooth relationship that is so hard to clear as is the high power stock OEM operating system sear and hammer tooth. Very oversized in terms of practical purposes, how large these parts need to be. And we never saw John Browning do things like that. So naturally then, these subassemblies, these components that were assemblaged piecemeal somewhat into the high power's final design, create the opportunity for optimizing, if you will. It creates the opportunity for, hey, maybe there is a better way to do this because God did not do this. And again, God with a small g, and we use that affectionately for John Moses Browning. And this seems to be very consistent that in firearms designs where the design wonders of John Browning are incorporated in with somebody else's work, consistently it's the somebody else's work is where you find the opportunities for improvement or optimization or betterment. So when we look at the Wikipedia article, I want to point you back to this paragraph, the HPSFS. Then it says safe, fast shooting. It's actually a safety fast shooting system originally. It says it's a current variation of the high power Mark III with a modified firing mechanism. And notice here that it says the HPSFS. This was the actual model, and it existed. And I wanted to show you this because what this is this is a copy of 2 pages, catalog pages from an FN catalog. And this would have been, I don't think there is a date actually on this, but this is circa 1988, 89, 90, 91, this kind of time frame. And for 1 year in FN's catalog, which in that time frame we did not see in the United States and probably did not know even existed back in those years, but in FN's catalog they had, again, the HPSFS pistol, 9x19 millimeter NATO. And this was the operating system that had been conceived to be the 21st century operating system for the SFS pistol. We believe that it represents some of the most innovative and greatest expertise design work that happened at FN in those years, and much of this genius where they were trying to solve a problem, but they didn't really exactly know, and it's evident here, they didn't exactly know what the problem was. And some of this stuff is indicative of dysfunctional stuff, stories we've heard about things inside FN at that time. They were losing market share to the wonder of the double action, single action pistol. So the SFS system was in one way conceived because it really is a single action pistol, Browning high power or 1911 specifically, the answer to what's better than double action, single action. What's better than double action, single action is a 1911 or a high power with SFS, because every trigger pull is the same. You don't have that long double action trigger pull. So the folks at FN knew that that obviously was an advantage. However, in a military application where typically these handguns are condition 3, like about 99.9% of their life, these things don't have anything in the chamber. Double action, single action doesn't exactly serve a practical purpose. And you know, anything, any operating system, for that matter, SFS in a condition 3 application serves no practical purpose. And let me explain what I'm talking about, because I don't want to get lost in the terminology for folks that are not as in depth in the terminology that we're talking about. I want to show you an example here. This is a high power with a traditional operating system. This one happens to have a ring hammer, and this is one of the early internal extractor models. But this handgun was designed and expected when it was designed to be used just like I'm holding it right here, unloaded, nothing in the chamber. There's nothing in this magazine either. But this would be the typical condition of a handgun in a military, would be a loaded magazine, but nothing in the chamber. So in that context, and it's still that way today. I mean, virtually, you know, the only time a typical service member, and even around the world, their handgun is ever loaded is like for that couple of seconds prior to when they start firing at the qualifying range yearly or whatever they do. Other than that, they don't have anything in the chamber. So this state of a handgun is perfectly fine for that application, no problem. The fact that it has a little nub of a safety, it doesn't matter. In this condition, I can't engage it anyhow. To put the weapon into service, it's always going to be the same thing. Rack the slide, and it's going to go forward and start shooting. And it didn't need to be any more complex than that for a military application for what is typically a Condition 3 application. Where it became in people's minds the idea that that application benefits somehow from double action, single action, that's still a mystery, because nobody really knows and nobody can answer the question. But firearms experts at the time could say, I don't have to, I don't have to rack the slide, or I can have around the chamber and the hammer's forward, and I can do the first shot's double action. Okay, so you have two different trigger pulls on a handgun. For whatever advantage that was, that did not apply to military. But it sold somehow to militaries around the world. The Beretta in the United States military is one example. And the CZ75 is another obvious example. FN had the idea that that was the nut they were trying to crack. And the SFS system was a way of doing it. And the rationale of the SFS system is this. And it applies to the way we carry in the United States as civilians, frankly, or the way law enforcement uses handguns, which is typically Condition 1. We normally do carry, most people, and all law enforcement carries with a round in the chamber. So if you have a round in the chamber and you are in a ready-to-fire state, as an example, with the traditional operating system of the high-power pistol, you have a handgun with the safety on that looks like that, and that's how you carry it. With the SFS system, and to deploy the weapon, you deholster, you deactivate the safety here, which is tough with that little nub of a safety, and you're ready to fire. With the SFS system, your ready state carry condition looks like this. It's easier to conceal. It does not snag coming out from under clothing. It doesn't bite into your side fat if you're carrying inside the waistband. Obviously, that's a less printing profile. And when it's deployed, D-safety, you just saw the hammer cock and the weapon is ready to fire at that point. This condition of carry obviously has its advantages. The fact that it can be ready to fire with just de-safetying and every trigger pull is the same obviously has an advantage. So FN and their designers had come upon a system, and then they turned around and made one for the 1911 as well. And you just saw me decock this hammer. That's another advantage of the SFS system. What I was doing was I didn't want the hammer cocked anymore, and so instead of dry firing it, I grabbed the hammer, do a trigger pull like this, let the hammer start forward, let the trigger go, and then you let the hammer ease forward to the half-cock position. Ever done that? All of us have with the traditional operating system. With the SFS system, when the hammer is cocked, it's as simple as push the hammer forward and the safety's cam up and it's on safe. That acrobatic stunt of having to do this in order to decock the high power, that of course, that leads to, it slips off the thumb and accidental firing can happen. We've talked to BH veterans and it's happened too. SFS solves that. There's actually 21 benefits that this system brought to the SFS system. I want to read you just real quick what FN had to say about the SFS system. It says, HP SFS. Interesting that on these two catalog pages, the word high power does not show up. I'm not sure why. They called it HP SFS pistol. Only the single action pistols allow excellent shooting accuracy. In other words, compared to what? And they're saying compared to double action, single action. However, chambering ammunition just before shooting increases the user's reaction time. So here what they're going for. However, chambering ammunition just before shooting increases the user's reaction time. So they are targeting this towards a Condition 1 application. On the other hand, carrying a weapon with a chambered round and a cocked hammer drastically reduces safety even when the manual safety lever is engaged. Granted, yes, it does. The HP SFS pistol offers both the operational performance as required by any user and a safety level never reached before. By simply pushing the hammer forward, 3 automatic safeties are activated at once. The slide is locked, the trigger is blocked, and the hammer is maintained in the forward fast shooting position. All safeties are deactivated at the same time, and the hammer is automatically recocked by lowering the ambidextrous ergonomic safety lever. The trigger remains light and precise while the first shot is immediate. That says a lot about what the SFS system, all of it is absolutely accurate. And then it gives a summary of benefits. Actually, users have come up with 21 benefits, and this just goes towards the under-marketing that was done with this system. But okay, the benefits are fast shooting, weapon carried, ready to fire in total safety. Yes. Trigger always in the same position. And again, compared to what? Compared to a long first double action trigger pull on a double action, single action pistol, and a short single action. So your finger has to learn 2 trigger pulls. Trigger pull in this scenario, same every time. Trigger travel and trigger pull identical to the single action for every shot. Backlash stop for increased accuracy. Now this is one that's often overlooked in the high power pistol that is SFS equipped. But the design of this extra post that you have on the left side safety lever that goes through the frame, through the return lever, and behind the sear, this is actually what is called a backlash stop. And backlash in a semi-automatic pistol is when you feel the energy from the slide coming back forward, in particular the high power, the sear lever and the sear possibly coming in contact with each other, and this energy you feel right back through the trigger. And the SFS system actually is designed to even eliminate backlash. And they equate it with increased accuracy. I equate it with increased accuracy and shooter comfort. And then they go and 3 safeties deactivated in a single operation. And they actually got that wrong because there's actually 4 safeties deactivated in that operation. The SFS system adds a drop safety, and it's a drop safety in the event of a drop on the hammer. And the traditional high power system does not have anything mechanical that protects you from a drop on the hammer that could cause the hammer tooth to get past the sear and fire the weapon. In the high power pistol, the SFS, you have an additional metal drop safety between the hammer and the firing pin that only cams down with pull of the trigger. However, when the hammer is pressed forward and your slide is locked, your trigger is blocked, you can't cock the hammer, and the trigger cannot release that extra drop safety. That's 4 safeties that are in place. So that means you can't drop this thing this way, pull the trigger, any way manually manipulated until de-safetied, and then all of those safeties are then at that point disengaged, and the trigger can cause the hammer to rotate down the additional drop safety to meet the firing pin. This was an incredibly sophisticated system that was developed at FN, and they expected this to be a real game changer, and we've never been convinced that it could not be. They go on to note about this system: feeding unchanged compared to the original high power. 1, introduce the loaded magazine. 2, pull the slide rearwards and release. 3, the gun is ready for single action shooting. Deactivation, and they say push the hammer forward. The single action automatically activates 3 safeties. It's actually 4. Slide is locked, triggers blocked, hammer is kept in the fast shooting position. Activation, push the ambidextrous safety cocking lever downwards. This operation deactivates the 3 safeties and places the hammer back in the cocked position. Target acquisition and fire. Then it talks about a well-balanced and dependable weapon, about the attributes of the high power, really. Quick aiming, improved accuracy, better comfort, accurate, and rapid fire. One of the other things I want to point out to you real quickly, we have users who often complain about hammer bite, and that means the web of your hand right back here getting too cozy with that hammer, and you see there even the web of my hand gets very close and I probably could get hammer bite. The SFS hammer has been re-angled, re-engineered, and it does not threaten the web of the hand like you see the ring hammer here actually did. So we're going to end this session for this time. This has been about the changes that the SFS system made for the high power design, and we'll see you next session.